Well, in the Nigerian Police Code of Conduct, a section on integrity says that, quote, a police officer will not engage in acts of corruption or bribery, nor will an officer condone such acts by other police officers. The public demands that the integrity of police officers be above reproach. Police officers must therefore avoid any conduct that might compromise integrity and that undercut the confidence reposed by the public in the police. Officers will refuse to accept any gifts, presents, subscriptions, favors, gratuities, or promises that could be interpreted as seeking to cause the officer to refrain from performing official responsibilities honestly and within the law. Police officers must not receive private or special advantage from their official status. Respect from the public cannot be bought. It can only be earned and cultivated. End of quote. And that's a good place to start on VSA today as we focus on the ethical issues to Abba Kyari's indictment. Welcome, I'm Sulai Aledeh. The indictment of Deputy Commissioner of Police Abba Kyari by the FBI in the Hushpuppi scandal is anything to go by. He has not followed this principle as clearly stated by the police. This puts his office and the police in a tight corner as Nigerians wait for what the decision on him will be. Already, he's been replaced as the head of the Intelligence Response Team by the Inspector General of Police, with Deputy Commissioner of Police Tunji Disu being the new man in the office. Going by the statement of DCP Kyari following the FBI's revelation, he may have supported a soon-to-be convicted Hushpuppi despite the conflict of interest, a move which is against another principle of the police. The ethical issues surrounding this scandal and the indictment of DCP Kyari are our focus on VSA today. Joining me to look at this is Iyah Iyah, policing and national security expert. He joins us from Jos in Nigeria. And Professor Douglas Anele is the head Department of Philosophy, University of Lagos, southwest of Nigeria. Well, many thanks, gentlemen, for joining us. Quickly, let me start by, talking, bringing this to Professor Douglas Anele here with me in the studios. From the indictment of DCP Kyari in this Hushpuppi scandal, some think that he has broken some codes of conduct of the police. Is this enough to make judgments on the entire conduct of the police, considering Kyari's now former position?
Well, thank you very much for having me. The problem of ethical conduct, and particularly when it concerns those who are holding positions of power and responsibility, is of utmost importance in any society that considers itself a society of civilized human beings. His misconduct, which involves the breach, not only of the police code that you just clearly read out now, but also the public trust in policing, particularly those who hold high positions in the police, is a serious matter. But it does not necessarily mean that each and every policeman or woman is corrupt. And don't also forget, the level of integrity or ethical conduct of either politicians or, policemen, or even academics or medical doctors, etc., in general, could hardly be above the general moral ecology of the society in which the individual person functions. Of course, there are people who, despite the morals of immorality in any community, distinguish themselves, but this must come from within. It's not a matter of reading our codes or taking oaths of office. No, it must come from the interiority of the individual concerned. So, a short answer to your question is that Abba Kyari might be guilty as charged, but it doesn't mean that each and every police officer is corrupt. There are still good ones among them. But the problem is that the number is diminishing. That's the truth.
Well, Iyah, you've heard Professor Anele. Let me bring this to you because he said something very important here, and which explains, what the society's role is in the conduct of any individual, especially professionals. But what will it do to the image of the police if Mr. Kyari is handed over to the FBI for questioning, and if he's found innocent or guilty? What does the police in general stand to lose or gain? I think it looks like you're on mute. You have to unmute yourself, Mr. Iyah Iyah.
Okay, thank you for having me on your program, on your show. Thank you. The jury is out. The public opinion is out there for everyone to feel the heat of the entire saga as it is. The Nigerian police and the police the world over are not new to issues like this, ranging from ethical issues of concern to the professional conduct of police personnel. The issue of Kyari, comes at a point in time when we have just been through a series of the NSAS protest, which has, left a very strong and high moral burden on the Nigerian authorities, the police, the service commission, and the political office holders that are responsible for the oversight and the regulation of law enforcement in Nigeria. Outrightly, it's a moral burden. It's been there before. We've had instances of Tafa Balogun, and we have called over the years that there should be an overreaching reform of the police, and for us to decentralize the over-centralized policing system that allows for police to police themselves, not only by themselves, but also the public to police the police. The issues of ethics and moral is highly discretional. And it depends on the side you are. Your understanding of what is ethical could be misinterpreted, because we've seen instances in this country where things have gone really bad, but then the government have no political will to really take it to the jugular. So in essence, the Kyari issue is the hazard that comes with the job. So we are not surprised. It's happened before, but it's happening again at a point in time that the police, the public trust in the police have never been this low in the history of this country, especially among young people. So we are concerned, and be it that the international community is involved. The Nigerian state have taken a drastic decision. The IG of police took a drastic decision to have him replaced. There are instances and cases that are worse off, that those crimes were committed in this country, but the fiat at which they have acted in this regard tells a story about how they are more responsive to issues that have the ears and the eyes of the international communities. And it brings a question about how we can evolve over time to carry out a very functional oversight function of, responsibilities, to the police and the police to us. So it's troubling. And it's really troubling, especially for practitioners and professionals in policing.
Let me bring it back here to the studios with Professor Anele and to help us here dissect. Professor, you've already raised a very important point, and you brought this to us, the people, the society, which is very important. And you have also said that it takes an individual, to have that, desire to say, I want to be different from every other person in the society. So from your experience of, in study of ethics, morality, now bringing us deeply into philosophy now, looking at this issue that Nigeria is handling, Listening to Iyah Iyah, he's told us of the former Inspector General of Police, Tafa Balogun, and again, you can also bring to mind some other police officers, as rightly said. But how can an institution like the Nigeria Police Force have more people, or rather, is it possible for the police to have more people, as you have so described, to say, I want to be different?
Well, like I said, in every society, institutions are created by human beings to serve human needs, which is where I disagree with people who emphasize institutions more than the human beings that run and manage them. There are no institutions without human beings. And when, particularly at the leadership level, where to some extent the subject we are discussing operates, you see, if the people at that level do not have inside them the conviction that it is better to do right than to do wrong, no matter how convenient that wrong might be for him or her at the moment, without that inner conviction, reading codes of ethics, would it be just a waste of time? It would be a matter of fulfilling all righteousness. Now, you see, there is a simple ethical test which everybody, including myself speaking, should always apply to ourselves. Paint a hypothetical scenario that you enter a place and you have $1 billion. There's nobody watching you. The possibility of being caught is virtually zero. And the money is not yours. Will you walk away without picking $1 out of it, knowing full well that nobody will catch you or nobody will see you? Or if you're a man, we have to be hypothetical too. We paint ideal situations. And you walk into a room full of beautiful naked women. None of them is your wife. None of them is your lover. You can do what you like with any of them without anybody, okay, punishing you or spreading ugly rumors about you. You can get away with it. Will you look at them and walk away without wanting to sleep with any of them? I am not saying that sleeping with anybody is morally wrong. My point is, you cannot claim to be moral unless you are tested. And you are tested by situations. And what you will do when you know you will not be caught is the greatest test of your moral fiber. If I said, I won't steal this your pen because you are watching me, not because I'm convinced that stealing it, collecting something from you without letting you know is morally wrong and I shouldn't do it, then I'm not really moral. Now, the fact of the matter is this. If Nigerians indeed are serious about having a police institution that will tend more towards proper moral conduct, Nigerians themselves must place a mirror before themselves. Because, I mean, what Kyari is alleged to have done is very despicable. I mean, it's like you give somebody something to look after, and the person happens to be the one that will steal from it. It's despicable. He is supposed to be apprehending and dealing with people who are defrauding others, but he's enabling it as alleged now. Now, the issue is that by actually not showing his capacity to resist temptation, and it never occurred to him that a day like this might come, you could see that he has failed that integrity test. But then the Nigerians that are up in arms, judging him, pontificating, sermonizing, I am saying today that it's very important that before we take categorical positions, we should place a mirror before ourselves to ask the fundamental question. If I am in Kyari's position, would I have acted differently? Because, you know, sermonizing about morality is cheap. Condemning those who make moral errors and moral mistakes is easy for anybody to do. But you will now discover that majority of those who are actually criticizing Kyari for his moral misconduct, if you are omniscient and you're able to see their daily lives in its quotidian details, you will see that the same temperament runs through them. So that if Nigerians are serious about having a police force that is dominated by men and women of reasonable moral integrity, because there's no perfect moral person in this world. If you are looking for a perfectly moral person, it does not exist in this planet. That's the truth. But each community must be able to, ensure that the level of moral aberration is reduced to the barest minimum. So if Nigerians really want a police as an institution that will tend more towards upholding morality and integrity in the way members of the institution function, they themselves must also be the example they want to see in the average police officer. Like I told you, it is easy to point fingers. It's easy to say crucify him.
You're talking about the people. When you say they themselves, the people, the society.
Nigerians, yes. Yes. That's what I'm talking about, Nigerians. Because if you're a woman, you are selling garri, and I want to buy garri from you, and instead of using the proper side of the cup to put garri for me, maybe I'm not paying attention, you turn it upside down. What is the difference between you and Kyari? It's the difference between 6 and half a dozen. So, you see, my point is that the level of moral decay in Nigeria is a cause for serious concern. And I can tell you that fundamental in this moral decay is the gradual breakdown of the traditional family system that should serve as the first socializing institution through which the human being begins to learn some of the fundamentals of civilized conduct in a society.
We'll come back to you because now you've taken it to the family unit, which is very important here. And some of the key things you've also raised, reminds me of what Professor Maduka once said. He said you can't say you love fasting when you're hungry because you don't have food. You should have a lot to eat and drink.
That is it.
Before you say,
that is it. If you have food and you refuse to eat, either for health reasons or for religious reasons, then your fasting has moral worth. But if you don't have food in the first place and you are saying you are fasting, you are deceiving yourself. Because if you see food, definitely you guzzle it down.
I'll come back to you so that we'll talk more about the family. It's very important here. You see, Professor Anele has taken it, to Nigerians, and now he's also been able to take it into our inner chamber, our closet. That's the family. But let's come to you. You've been studying and working very closely with the police. Many Nigerians believe that this indictment of Mr. Kyari, even before passing judgment, has actually done the police, really, really bad. How can the police now better its already battered image, even though, as you rightly said, the IG and the Police Service Commission have already started, that move by embarking on that suspension and immediate, investigation on Mr. Kyari? What else should they be looking at doing?
Thank you. Well, the truth here is it's beyond the moral aspect of it, the moral compass of it is quite important. But as it is, we are looking at the institutional framework that guides the operation, the leadership and the administration of policing in Nigeria. I'll be looking at that area more than the moral aspect of it, because how do you measure morality? By whose standard?
No. I think yes, that's why on the issue of ethics and morality, the professor of philosophy will be helping us on that. That's why I'm going straight to the issue of policing. I'm asking, what else can the police do, knowing full well that the police, is on the spotlight now, yes, in the spotlight rather, and a lot of people are asking questions of the police. What can the police do to let the people know that, hey, wait a minute, we're on top of this and it won't be swept under the carpet?
Yeah, there's a complete decay of our policing system to a large extent. The police cannot purge itself without a functional oversight and the leadership responsibilities from government and for those that are within the legislative arm to oversee and regulate the activities of the police. As structured today, the Nigerian police is not structured to evolve. It is structured for command purposes. What's the function of the police? To maintain law and order. Who interprets the law? The chief law officer of the country. Who educates the law? The judiciary. It's just beyond the Police Service Commission or the police management or the police leadership to bring about this change. We need a holistic reform of the policing system in Nigeria. We need a total rejigging of the policing system in Nigeria. Suspending Kyari, replacing him, is just another box ticked. The problem of policing is fundamental. And we must return back to the basics and look at how policing works, peculiarly in our situation in Nigeria. Lately, we've heard a lot about the community policing model that has been introduced by the government. How will it function? As I speak to you today, the blueprint, if there is any, that I read on papers and I've tried to assess, is not inclusive, and at the same time, is not detailed enough to look at the complexities of communities and the specific needs, policing needs of Nigerians within our diversity. The function of the police is to maintain law and order. And the hazard that comes with it is when you break the ethic and values expected of a police officer, as you rightly outlined at the beginning of this program, then you are held accountable to it.
Let me quickly bring it back. Sorry to cut you there, sorry to butt in. Let me bring it back to Professor Anele here, because you have already arrived at where he stopped, and that's, well, the people and the family value. Professor Anele, quickly here, you know, looking at our society now, speaking as Africans, time was when an average African wouldn't take what does not belong to, you know, him or her. And now we have seen people, especially in this age of social media, families now idolize people, you know, without really talking about how they came about such wealth or positions. And if you say we should start looking or talking about the family unit, what are those missing things that the family once had that we have almost, you know, lost to the extent that what we see today is a reflection of the kind of upbringing and training we have right in our closet?
Yeah, thank you very much. Like I said, most analysts tend to focus too much on institutions. And I keep telling them, there is nothing like institutions without human beings. You can have all the structures or the code of conduct. It is human beings that give life to them, and it is human beings that run them. Each and every one of us came from a family. And the complex issues of how people are socialized, beginning from the family unit down to when you go to school, and probably if you belong to one religion or another, these are very complex issues. But we can bring some of them a little bit down to the level where we can reduce the complexity. parents are actually abdicating their responsibilities of bringing up their children. And why do I say this? I remember when we were growing up, if your mother sees a pencil that neither your dad nor herself bought for you, you have a very serious explanation to make. You discover that in the family, parents were really taking responsibility for the proper upbringing of their children. Now, because of the changing moral and economic ecology that requires, because frankly speaking, there is enough body of research to show that children reared in biparental homes generally turn out to be better. I am not saying that a child that is reared by a single mother or by the father alone, they hardly turn. No. I'm saying that in general, there is something the mother brings to the table, there's something the father brings to the table in the proper upbringing of their children. But these days, what happens? Mommy and daddy are busy chasing money, and the children are left in the hands of nannies and possibly relations, some of whom do not have what it takes, the intellectual and moral capacity to train a human being. Because training a human being, if Africans will recognize that it takes a lot. People think it's money. It's not money. There is a level of financial stability that is required for the proper upbringing of a kid. Nobody does that. But there are also both moral and spiritual, I didn't say religious, spiritual determinants of how appropriate a child should be trained. And therefore, if the parents do not have what it takes to bring up a child properly, then there is going to be a problem. Who are you going to recruit? It is the children that have already been messed up, who have their values, mixed up as they are growing up. You see that in Nigeria today, all you need to do is to flaunt your wealth, and everybody will queue behind you. Nobody asks the fundamental question: how was this wealth accumulated? Now, if you are a young man or a young woman, and you grew up in a moral environment where the end justifies the means, it does not matter how you make. If you enter the police force, you are the IG or whatever, you are talking institutions, it is this decadent morality that you bring to bear there. So there are no two ways, there's no miracle about it. The Nigerians that are manning the police, the Nigerians that are doing religion or in the academia, they are all the people that are brought up within a polluted moral ecology. So to expect the police to show an awesome or an above average degree of morality, for me, it's actually, trying to bring water out of a dry stone, because you cannot go beyond what you have. What I said before, your interiority. What kind of person are you? What values motivate you? Are you the type that says, let me even make the money? The question of how I made it. These are the fundamentals, because no matter the fantastic institutions you set up, and the institutions help. I'm not the one that would denigrate institutions. But my point remains that the human element is the critical factor. So all we need to do now is to ensure in our various families that we take time to be parents. Parents are franchising their duties. They are outsourcing their jobs. If you cannot train a child, don't bring a child into this world, because the average, the child you are bringing up can grow up to be a corrupt politician, a corrupt police officer, a corrupt medical doctor, a corrupt journalist, a corrupt lecturer. This is the basis, the family. And it matters a lot that people begin to look back at the values that dominate in the society. We are living in a grossly materialistic environment. And that materialism has led to the decay of the... So what you are seeing, let's assume that Abba Kyari is guilty. What you are seeing in the police, what you are seeing in our politicians, What you are seeing among our leaders, our governors, our legislators, etc., what you are seeing is actually the long-term consequences of people that are badly brought up, people that are fed the wrong moral diet. If you are a terrible person and you become a president or inspector general or whatever it is, are you going to transform immediately into a saint? It only happens in Hollywood movies. But in the real life, it does not. Because you can't give what you don't have. And it is what is in your inside, your personality trait, that you bring to bear in whatever position in life you find yourself.
I think it's a fine place for us to take a break. When we come back, we'll space it more, and Iyah Iyah, we'll take your closing moments so that we can let you go and wrap up here with Professor Anele. He said it that whatever we're dealing with today in the studios, talking about Abba Kyari, is just one out of the millions in the society that are badly brought up. And of course, the blame is on parents, the family unit, the society. More on this when we return. Well, it's our home run here on VSA, here on News Central Television, talking about what Nigeria and the Nigeria police is dealing with at the moment. You know, police officers and holders of public offices are expected to show a level of social comportment, dalliance, you know, with public figures, and people clashing public perception is usually not for the good of these officers. But, you know, after a four-man panel led by a DID has been set by the police, it is expected that thorough investigations will be conducted and the next line of action will be made public. Already, there should be investigations into the activities of Kyari with the IRT and also the activities of the team as a whole. The coming days will tell more about the story with Kyari, indicted alongside 5 others, 3 of whom have been arrested. I still have with me Professor Douglas Anele. He's the head Department of Philosophy, University of Lagos, and of course Iyah Iyah, who is an expert in policing and a security expert who is right there in Jos, Plateau State. Quickly here, Iyah Iyah, you know, what do you expect of the Nigerian government now, looking at what is happening, you know, with the Nigerian police and the man at the center of the whole imbroglio?
Suleiman, we are here talking about policing as a system or as an institution, how it is governed, how it is regulated, who takes responsibility for policing, whose oversight function is it to measure the impact and the effect of policing. So it is beyond Abba Kyari. And recall that it took an indictment of a foreign nation. It took an arrest made in a foreign nation due to a crime or crimes committed by the suspect in a foreign nation for this discussion to be brought to light and for the action of the Police Service Commission. Someone supervises Kyari. Someone is responsible for overseeing the activities of Kyari. Beyond Kyari, we should have found out before now that these deals, as accused, were taking place. When I speak or mention systems and institutions, those are the drivers of policing in a democracy, in a government, in a nation. What happens in the family is important, but how we govern ourselves is also very important. Without law, without institutions, and without designated functions as written, then we won't have a country or a government or an institution of policing that functions. What is the function of the police? To maintain law and order. What is law? There are instruments outlined, agreed, legislated, that if you do this, which is crime or criminality, you will be punishable by this and that. So our institutions are important. The systems to make sure that these institutions are followed to the letter are also important. As important as the moral fabric matters. What will drive it? Crime and criminality has been there right from time, right from creation. You will always have criminals. But what stops criminals are these laws. And who are actually saddled with the responsibilities to enact or to implement these laws to the letter? They are people from our homes and communities. But then those institutions are important. Are the present institutions weak? Are they strong? Are the present oversight weak? Are they strong? Who should have found out about what Kyari was doing? Beyond Kyari, there are other individuals that are saddled with the principal, primary, and moral responsibility to supervise him, to find out the activities of Kyari. Now, before we go further, I want to recall that we are always cherry picking. Why did it take an American government for this to happen? There are instances of extrajudicial killings in this country and so on and so forth. But the fiat here is because America is involved. So let's look at the systems. Let's look at the functions and the structures of the policing system and administration in the country for us to see how we can strengthen the oversight. And I will make some suggestions that policing should be more localized. And the moral aspect of it will be more effective when people from certain local communities are involved in the design and the management of the policing
are you implying that localizing the policing, system in Nigeria will help, or rather avert a recurrence of what Nigeria is dealing with at the moment?
Absolutely, it will, because the police functions by public trust. And if the public trust the police, they will work with the police and for the police. The police is nothing without the currency of the public.
When you say
when the public have the ownership of policing, then they will take the moral responsibility for oversight, community oversight, and also to help the police fish out criminals within and around the community.
When you say, let me come in here again a moment. When you say localizing the policing, system in Nigeria, how does localizing the police help in bringing about, some morally upright police officers, keeping in mind what Professor Anele has, posited earlier on, the society?
Prof talked about the focus on the family as the moral bedrock for bringing out the products that we have today in our society. There's no community. There's no family that don't have the do's and the don'ts. The moral fabric is in the foundation. And when you localize policing, it means that the local people are taking responsibilities for keeping law and order within their community. Before the current policing system, we have the local policing system. It functioned. People had the way of trashing out problems. They had the ways of fishing out criminals within their communities.
All right, let's wrap up. Let's wrap up this with you. How do you see this playing out? Now the investigation is on, and a whole lot happening. The FBI is asking that Mr. Kyari be sent to the U.S. To face trial. How do you see this all coming, to an end?
Well, it's just the beginning. The Pandora's box has just been opened. The Pandora's box has just been opened. It's just the beginning. it took the American government to indict Kyari. What was the Nigerian government or the police authority doing at the first instance? Whose responsibility is it, or was it, to oversee and supervise Kyari? Kyari is just one. A good cop has been mentioned everywhere, but that's the hazard that comes with the job. One mistake, boom. But think about it. The Inspector General of Police, the AIGs and the DIGs that supervise Kyari, and the head of the units at the center should be asked, why did you allow it to go this far? It's embarrassing for the country. It's embarrassing to the police authorities in the country, and it's emblemish in all terms that others should take responsibilities that they have not been able to supervise Kyari effectively. And if I don't know if there's any threat here of repatriation, I don't know. It's happening in Boho, it's happening in Nnamdi Kanu and the rest of others, but Kyari now is the police. So my question is, who is actually and really policing the Nigerian police?
Well, I think it's a fine place for us to say many thanks for being such a nice company. Iyah Iyah, the policing and national security expert. He joined us from Jos in Nigeria. Many thanks for your time. Quickly, let's close on the two key issues on this issue. And again, we'll also talk about, you know, the academic, you know, what is happening with lecturers. But quickly, let's come back to this issue. And when we talk about morality, we'll talk about ethics, we'll talk about the family. Key things here is that we've seen how, for instance, now you talk about professionals. Now let's bring it again to the media. It's something that a lot of people have also said, that even the media sometimes tagging some police officers as maybe super cops, you know, crime busters.
I think Kyari's case.
Yeah, as in Kyari's case, has actually not done the police and our society any good.
Yeah, because it goes to what I'm saying, you know. When your family and your educational institutions are in decay, that's what you get. How are journalists in Nigeria trained? What is the quality of education they are getting from various institutions that produce those working in the media? So you can see, it's like a COVID. The moral decay is like COVID-19. Maybe you can call it COVID-19 million, because the impact is more deadly. You don't see it, but when it begins to manifest its consequences, the society is actually in danger. So the fact of the matter is that Abba Kyari may be a poster boy for the moral decay among the profession. But you see journalists also, how many of them do in-depth research? Before you call somebody super cop, you call somebody, have you investigated his or her antecedents? Or you are judging based on a single instance or two? It is that lack of intellectual and moral rigor. Because intellectual and moral rigor, Sulaiman, they don't come easy. It is something you nurture over time. Like Aristotle said, habit is second nature. So if you are not habituated to taking rigor in whatever you do, even in your person, how would you manifest the level of intellectual and moral rigor that is required of you as a journalist? Now, journalists generally, like everybody, like those of us, we are not well paid. The financial pressure from your family, from your dependents, even from yourself. Unless you are somebody with strong moral stamina, you are likely to bend. And if you are not careful, you will break. So, to answer your question simply, in different aspects of our lives as a people, the level of moral infestation is so serious that we need what I call moral and spiritual inoculation. And this moral and spiritual inoculation must start from the home, must also start in the schools. You see that this moral decay has actually penetrated the very bastion most Nigerians expect to have moral rectitude, which are the religious bodies. You can see what is going on now. You know, so the fact is that for any Nigerian in the professions, journalist, academic, police officer, to really manifest a reasonable degree of integrity, you must search into your interiority. I keep emphasizing it. You must look within. Because if you look at the society, what society is interested in is how long is your account in the bank? Is it like a telephone number or is it like ABC? That's what matters to people. So as long as you live within such a morally polluted ecology, it will be difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. And like I also said, you cannot have any moral perfection.
Do you have an idea of how this can be reversed? You know?
Yes, it's a gradual process. It's not going to happen overnight. First and foremost, like I said, from the family, then the institute, the educational system, and then we should begin to tell people, maybe through NGOs, through media campaigns, that look, it is time we return to the moral garden of Eden, where we prioritize, ethical conduct, the capacity to say no to what is convenient but can give you instant gratification. We have lost the capacity for delayed gratification. We want it now. And science and technology is not really helping. And I can tell you why. In those days, if I want to write a letter to you, maybe if a young girl, I like you so much, I want to, we wrote love letters, but these days, what do people do? They download emojis. They download what other people have constructed and fire it to you instantly.
So people no longer use words.
Exactly. You tell somebody Happy New Month, the person will go and collect one sticker and paste for you. We want instant gratification. And life is not lived that way, because when you learn the capacity for instant gratification, when you learn the beauty of patience, you will discover that you've not been. Imagine a police officer collecting money from a fraudster. Come on, in fact, what Kyari is alleged to have done has actually. We know that the image of the Nigerian police is bad, but this has added insult to injury, because the abuses, if you see any police officer and you say, this man may also be a Hushpuppi cop, or police officer, because of what this guy has done. So we can, individually, it's not easy to say, look, yes, it can give me instant gratification, but I won't do it.
All right, okay, let's close, because you can't come in here without me asking you about some of the key things happening here, if we can close on that. And it has to do with the Integrated Personnel Payroll and Information System in Nigeria, called IPPIS. Okay. And lecturers in Nigeria are against that. And many said, wait a minute, we thought this is just to integrate your salary in one bucket so that we can get everyone who is a genuine lecturer to be so paid. Why are lecturers against that system?
When government introduced TSA, you recall that a lot of Nigerians actually suffer from,
that's the Treasury single account.
Yeah, the Treasury. Jonathan floated it in 2014, but it was supposed to be implemented in phases, which is smart, because if you are a leader in this day and age, you must have an experimental spirit, so that when you implement something in a selected area, you wait for feedback and see what are the loopholes, what are the areas that require strengthening. But when you have a government that behaves like a bull in a china shop, you don't run a university by that kind of centralized system. And now, to even worsen matters, you brought IPPIS. And the propaganda from government is that, we want to stop ghost workers. The problem of Nigeria is over-centralization of those things that should not be centralized. Now, as we say, look, if you now bring this IPPS, the emoluments of university staff, not just even lecturers, but non-academic staff, will be based up. We are seeing it.
Is that happening now?
It's happening. I'm a victim of it. I received in July less than 1/3 of my salary. I'm not owing the university. I am not owing cooperative. I am not owing anybody. So why would I be paid less than 1/3 of my salary? So the truth of the matter is this. The reason why government introduced IPPIC, let me tell you the truth, forget all the propaganda, is that if academic staff decide to say, okay, government is messing up the system and it is going on strike, government can now stop paying anybody's salary immediately because it is centrally paid from one point. Unlike before, whereby sometimes I remember when Omotola was Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, when salaries were stopped, the man mopped up whatever he could from IGR and paid people. So government really wants, this government sees you, when you don't agree with what he says, you are public enemy number one, irrespective of the validity, the rationality, and the reasonableness of your argument.
So what's the government doing to rectify this anomaly? Because it's really a shock to notice that
I don't know, I don't work in government.
Salaries are being slashed.
I am a victim. Prices are galloping. Some people from government will be telling you, oh, this is a fantastic time. I don't understand what happens to people when they go to government. I think their brains begin to work anti-clockwise. There is a kind of, small madness that enters Nigerians the moment they ascend to the corridors of power. Because how can you see, Suleiman, what is happening today, and somebody is telling you government is performing, and you listen to that person? You look at yourself and the person and ask, who is insane? Go to the market. You give your wife or your husband or whatever it is, the same money you give him or her to get something, and you go there. My wife keeps telling me, Oga, you will follow me to the market. And somebody is telling me, somebody who has brains is telling me something is working. Now, you see, when people castigate lecturers, I myself, I'm a member of ASU, and I criticize ASU too, because given my temperament as a person and my discipline, which is philosophy, where nothing is beyond ratiocinative scrutiny, I criticize my union. But for goodness sake, government must recognize when ASU is right and do what is necessary, because I can tell you today, I don't know whether it is for free or not, that a new wave of brain drain has started in the universities, particularly in public universities.
Well, I think that's a fine place for us to do I say a fine place? Well, that's not
too fine.
That's a worrying place.
Exactly, a worrying place.
To leave the conversation today. It's been a delight speaking with you, Professor Anele, and I'm hoping that we can actually keep the conversation going, especially concerning the family unit, which you've highlighted. We need to see how we can stretch it and expand it. But for the government of Nigeria, they need to look into what Professor Anele has said concerning the emolument, the take-home of lecturers, and look critically into that system called IPPIS. Exactly. Many thanks for being such a nice company. I'm Sulaiman. I'll see you again tomorrow.